Take time with a woman.
And welcome inside the Wells Fargo Center. It is Flyers game day. Jason Myrtetus here on the right side of the table, on the left side, and the wrong side is Brian Smith.
Okay.
You're on the
That's
left.
really quickly.
Yes. But I'm first shift today. Second shift today. I don't have my headphones. Hey, Sean.
I can give you what I have in your head.
You can listen to my headphones? I like to hear me. It's all about me.
Oh, my goodness. Here we go.
I brought Ego game tonight. He's got 2 seats. Anyway, so we're at the East Wells Fargo Center, the first of an 8-game homestand, which, boy, by the way, is incredibly unforgiving for a team that's having a rough season.
I guess the only good thing about the next 8 games is they get to play them all at home, and they don't have to travel around and play this group of people. Because my goodness, there are no games that you would look at this and say, okay, the Flyers might be favored, except for the Chicago game. 7 of the 8 are against, I believe, teams all in playoff position right now. I haven't looked at the West. I don't know exactly where Vegas is, but I think they're up there still. But it is a bit of a murderer's row here for the Flyers over the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, again, the only thing they got going for there is they get to play these games at home. They're pretty spread out. They have one back-to-back next week, and then they don't have to play them, like anything crazy like 6 and 10 or anything like that. So that's going in their favor. But, yeah, they've got a pretty stiff itinerary here over the next 5 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, just before the end of this month, they're starting the 18 homestand with Washington. Then you get Carolina on Monday, matinee hockey on President's Day against Carolina, 3:00 here at Wells Fargo. And then Craig Berube with that new 3-year contract comes in with the St. Louis Blues. And then on Saturday the 26th, we'll see Washington here again.
Yep.
Then we'll kick off the month of March with Edmonton, Minnesota, Chicago, and Vegas. By the way, Vegas, yes, second in the Pacific Division.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting from the standpoint of, the Flyers are going to be facing some of the top teams in their division, obviously. Washington, Carolina coming in. They're going to see a couple of teams that right now are part of the Claude Giroux rumor mill. They've got Edmonton coming in, who is not part of that mill, but they're an intriguing team right now. And then once this is all over, they get back to a bit of a normal schedule, and they're going to have a 5-game road trip after the trade deadline that, again, is going to include some of those Midwest teams. So, it is going to be a very interesting few weeks around here, just in terms of what's going to happen as far as the future of the organization is concerned. But, they have to focus on the matter at hand, try to get a lot of hockey out there. That was really like the first 2 periods of the Pittsburgh game. Just try to be a difficult team to play against and limit the number of chances you give up. That's really all this group can do at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that we were talking to Nick Schultz before the game, and I asked him about the psychology of when you go out to score the first goal, when you pick one up on the next shift, and then kind of a parallel to that was in the third period, the Penguins scored to get within 1, and then on the next shift, they scored to tie it. But the psychology I'm talking about right now is this. When you have a team that's missing 10 players and key components, obviously when you have 10 missing on a hockey team, that's a lot. And you've got, centers like Sean Couturier and Kevin Hayes and Ryan Ellis, and the list goes on, right? Rasmus Ristolainen still out, and Joe Farabee, and all, we know the guys that are missing. The psychology of entering a game without going into the game with a foregone conclusion that we're going to lose. When you consider what they're missing, what they are as a team right now, and who the opponents are, how do you go into that game without having that defeated mentality before the puck even drops?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that's going to be that's going to be a big thing for this team to battle here. It's just going to get worse and worse, probably as the spring goes on here. The one thing that hockey players do have is a tremendous sense of pride, and it's very rare that you see a team just quit on a season, no matter what they're going to be in. So the Flyers are doing right now, I think, is they are, they're trying to, again, right now, do everything they can with what they have to be competitive on any given night. And then you're going to get to a point in the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks of the season where the thing that they want to pull out every night is to be the rarest sporto, I think, on a lot of nights. They're going to be in a position coming down the stretch here where what they do doesn't necessarily affect their overall situation, but they very well could throw a monkey wrench in somebody else's. And that's really – that's something I feel like is a little bit unique to hockey, just in the terms of how teams kind of approach that. You have in football a little bit. You've got it in some other sports, but hockey in particular, it's always entertaining to see a team go out on a given night and say, "Hey, we're going to go out there and ruin your playoff or your positioning or something like that." So that will come into play a little bit too over the course of the last half of what's left here of the season, last 15 games or so. You're going to have to wait and see who the Flyers get back from injury. Still hoping, I think they still have a bit of a cling of hope to getting Ryan Ellis back for at least a length of time that they can kind of evaluate where he's at and figure out what to do moving forward as far as the defense is concerned. Right now they've got basically 4 games to work with that was played, 4 months ago at this point. So they're hoping that they can get him in there, get a good look at where he's at, and maybe also get a couple of guys back in there to start their progression back to getting into the lineup full time next year. Because once they get through this season and there's no more games left to be played, it's going to take some time next year for them to kind of get back in the saddle. So if they do some of that at the end of the season, that'd be great, but it's all going to depend on health and things like that.
Yeah, another one of those guys, the kind of a floating deadline of March 1st for Kevin Hayes. Now, I think Mike Yo said today he did skate today, felt pretty good. So they're still, waiting to make that decision on if he will return this season and get back out there. Obviously, at this point, you look at it and go, if there's any chance of it impacting his off-season training for next year, next season, any of those things, exacerbating it further, you don't do it. You just don't. Yeah. You want him to play, but you don't want a cost attached to it.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything that's going to set a guy back or force him to go into some sort of surgery that maybe he doesn't need right now. But to that effect, along the same lines, you also, it sounds like a couple of these guys are on the fence and whether or not they need procedures or not. And if they go out and get a couple of games in, they still don't feel good, maybe then surgery is the route they want to take. So it kind of goes both ways.
Be determinative.
You have an opportunity to see if you want to go that route or if you're feeling well enough without it. Because what you don't want to do is have any of these guys get to August, start ramping up their training and realize, hey, I need to have something taken care of. So.
Yeah, well, another one's interesting. Like you look at Derek Bertsard, and that's another interesting one to me. Because Bertsard, comes in on that veteran minimum to here to Philadelphia to extend his career at 34 years of age. And the mentality of the hockey player is, I play through anything. If I can, there's a difference. I'm either injured or hurt. If I'm hurt, I play. If I'm injured, I don't.
Right.
Because that's like medically not cleared, right?
Yeah.
And hockey players, you can get your face smashed into hamburger, your arm put through a wood chipper, and you'll be out for your next shift. That's the mentality. And that's the mentality all growing up. And then obviously in the NHL, you play through stuff. And Derek Bertsard is a guy who's tried to come back a couple of times and has gone back out. He skated today, and he's also a guy that wants to play again to show he's healthy so that he's got more career beyond this year. Because that makes the job more difficult at grabbing a job in the NHL if he doesn't play the remainder of the way.
Right.
That's part of it too.
I mean, the guys like Bertsard and Yandel hasn't had any injury issues, knocking on wood, but those guys are basically right now on a year-to-year basis, right? It's just a matter of what they can bring to a team down the road that could decide whether they get another year in this league or whether they're done. So you have that going for a couple of guys. Martin Jones isn't at, I don't think, a year-to-year basis yet, but his future will be determined here probably by what happens on the back end of this period before the trade deadline, if he goes somewhere else, or he's on a 1-year deal though. So regardless, he's going to have to establish himself for next year. So there's a few guys like that have things to play for beyond what the overall team goal of everything is.
Yeah, and you're like when you get up there and you're north of 30, you're always auditioning for your next gig. It's just part of the equation. Now, one of the guys that's not going to need to audition for a new gig is one of the opponents tonight. In my opinion, my humble opinion, he's the greatest goal scorer to ever play this game. No, he doesn't have the most goals ever. He will, but he doesn't yet, and it's Alexander Ovechkin. And anytime he is on the opposition and you're playing against him, you better know when that grade 8 is on the ice, because he does everything at 110 miles an hour. He shoots the puck incredibly hard every time, and he's a great player. So you get Ovi tonight, and Bri, against the Flyers, we just saw Crosby pick up his 50th goal against the Flyers and 500th of his career the other night. Ovechkin's not far behind in the damage he's done to the Flyers. He's got 42 career goals against the Flyers, 71 points in 64 games.
Yeah, and to me, the testament of what he can do is that he's been doing the exact same thing on the power play for upwards of 15 years now, and people still can't stop it. Every time you go out against the Washington Capitals on the power play, that Alexander Ovechkin is going to set up in the left side circle, and they're going to try to find him for a one-timer. And, you can do almost anything you want, and he's still going to be able to fire it home. He has that uncanny ability to, put it in the right place at the right time, just about every opportunity he gets to it. And then, if you decide, okay, I'm going to put a guy in his pocket the whole game, now you got to deal with everybody else that's on their power play and net front. So, you kind of have to pick your poison there. But, he has been about as true a definition of unstoppable as I think I've seen in this league over the last several years.
Especially when like you point out, where he's going to be. He's going to be on that left side.
Yep.
And cocked and loaded, ready for the one-timer. And he's a guy that doesn't come off the ice for the full 2 minutes of the power play.
He doesn't need to, because all he does is stand there.
Yeah, he doesn't move around.
He doesn't use any energy.
He kind of defies my logic of, everybody's got to be moving.
Right. If you have him, he doesn't have to move.
He puts the car in park and puts on the emergency brake.
Yeah.
And he's good to go. He's in his goals against the Flyers, 24 even strength goals, 18 power play goals.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that it's not more tilted toward the power play side of things, to be honest. But he obviously gets it done on even strength just as much as he does on the power play. He's just more known for the power play because that's what you watch for on any given night. But the fact that he's able to be scoring at a level anywhere near the same conversation as Wayne Gretzky, with today's goaltenders being what they are, that's astounding. If you put Wayne Gretzky out on the ice in his prime, in an era of the goaltending that we have today, I don't know what kind of numbers he puts up. Maybe he does put up what he did back then, but with all due respect to all of our goaltending friends that played back then, the goaltending during Gretzky's era was terrible compared to what we have today. It was just guys standing there and just kind of waving at things as they go by them,
taking away angle.
Yeah, that's all there was to it. So that to me, that this is kind of jumping over to this era, where a lot of times the scoring records in this era are more impressive than past years because of the way the game is played. I should say, a lot of times they're less impressive because of the way the game is played. You have less clutching and grabbing and all that sort of thing. For Ovechkin to still come out in this era and do what Gretzky did back then is really remarkable.
Yeah, and it is amazing when you look at the adjusted numbers, like era adjusted numbers. He's just a great player, and Gretzky would have been great no matter what era he played in. And Ovechkin would have been great in any era that he plays in. The greats are just that. They transcend eras.
Yeah.
And he's unbelievable, and he's been doing it a long time. But this year he's really balanced his game. 31 goals, 31 assists, 62 points. I think he's third or fourth in the league in points. And at his age, the fact that he hasn't slowed down and his game has evolved, a lot of people talk about him for the Hart this year.
Yeah.
And he very well may win it. I mean, he's 36 years of age, turned 36 back in September, got that salt and pepper going on in the hair, but he's still the same old Obi on the ice and dominant and dominant sometimes in a little bit of a different way. So he's a little bit more of a handful maybe to deal with, not so one-dimensional now.
Yeah, and you also are dealing with turnover in the league. He's been here so long that the folks that maybe were successful against him over the years, they come and go over the rest of their careers, and then you got to break in a whole new set of folks to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten to the point where it's almost a second generation of defenders trying to deal with him on penalty kills and things like that. And
might be third at this point.
Could be, yeah. And that's a subplot of tonight is for the Flyers to stay out of the box because lately their penalty kill has not been it, and you don't want to. You don't. Yeah. It's not what that's not what you're supposed to be killing when you're on the penalty kill, but that's the way it's gone lately. So they need to not take any unnecessary penalties against this bunch, and give them extra opportunities to take advantage of it, or it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the goaltending matchup tonight. You alluded to it earlier. It's going to be Martin Jones tonight. He's going to get the start for the Flyers. And Martin Jones, he hasn't played now in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Since the 25th, I think it is, of January was the last game that he got. That was a Tuesday. So that's 1, 2, 3. So it's been 23 days since he's played a game. That's hard for a goalie.
It is.
Because you can't simulate practice. You can't simulate a game in practice for a goal.
And part of that was the All-Star break. Part of it was just by necessity. And we talked about this the other night. We thought he might get a game tonight just from the standpoint of the Flyers want to get him out there and get him playing. Let other teams possibly get a look at him, I think, and figure out if he's going to be one of those pieces that goes somewhere else to fill a playoff team's need for a backup goaltender or just goaltending depth. And I mean, we were at the point a month ago where we thought Mike McKenna might come out of retirement and play for somebody because all the goalies were getting COVID and all this stuff. It's not like that anymore, but he's a decent option for a team looking to shore things up for a playoff run.
Yeah, and a guy that's gone to a Stanley Cup final as well.
Yeah.
So, and doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on this season. He's played 17 games, a record of 6-8-2, 3.56 goals against average, .901 save percentage. He's actually, I would say, played better than those numbers. There's a couple of lopsided games in there where the team in front of him really didn't provide him much help, and that's kind of tainted his numbers a little bit. But I think he's had a pretty good year, and it was one of those signings that I kind of questioned. I was like, I didn't see that coming. First of all, I couldn't see it coming because he was still under contract in San Jose. So in my defense, he didn't get bought out, but he's rekindled with Kim Dillaball, and they did a nice job. He's definitely adjusted the way he plays the game, which has been taking less ice and being a little deeper in his net. Better off when he does that. But the guy on the other side is Ilya Samsonov. He will be in goal for the Washington Capitals in this game. Another one of these Russian invasion goaltenders. Samsonov's played in 28 games, 16-7-3, 2.83 goals against average, and a .906 save percentage. But they don't have a dead set number one. It's between him and Vanacek, but it's Samsonov will get the start tonight for Washington. So, but the Flyers got to find a way to score goals. And Brad, the thing that I'm looking at again is that Scott Lawton line with Travis Konechny and James Henry. They were great in the game the other night.
They have had a pretty good run here as of late, really, over the last week or two. Scott Lawton is on a 6-game scoring streak that ties a career high. He is quickly approaching the numbers that he had in the 1920 season, which ended prematurely, of course, but at the time it ended, it was his career best season. He's really one of the guys that has taken the opportunity, so to speak, here over the last couple of months with so many people out to take a bigger chunk of the pie and take advantage of added ice time and be able to contribute. And that's what the Flyers are looking for here as they decide how they're going to chart a path forward, is they're going to look at the folks that have been able to come into these situations where they wouldn't normally get 20, 21 minutes of ice time per game or something like that. But they now will get it because there's nobody else to do it. and how are they going to respond? And they're going to use that information to slot them into what's going to happen next season. So he's really had an impressive season overall, but especially the last month or so, really since the turn of the calendar. He's really been a bright spot for this team, and he's worked well on that line.
Yeah, that line was really creating a lot of good opportunities last night. You got to wonder, is that going to be maybe the line, though, that gets tasked with dealing with Ovechkin? And does that then, mitigate some of what they've been able to do offensively? If that's the case, then the Drew Atkinson line is going to have to really, and Lindblom's going to have to be really good.
That would be the way I would lean. I would lean toward it being Lawton's line, because that's the closest thing you can get right now to a Couturier type line. I know what line I don't want it to be. That would be the fourth line. I would like to not see that line out against that line at all tonight. Well, I'm sure it'll be necessary at some point, but yeah, that's a and again, in terms of the things we're measuring, I mean, we look at Lawton's points, we look at his streak, and we look at how he's been performing lately, but that sort of assignment too, they're going to look really closely at that. They're going to see how he's able to shut down a line like this and how they can move that in moving forward.
All right, we're going to join our radio audience here on 93.3 WMMR in just a couple of seconds and continue talking about Flyers and Caps. As soon as they hit the open, we're good to go. Our radio audience inside Wells Fargo Center at the East Food Hall. Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus, getting you ready for Flyers, Caps, Alexander Ovechkin. The Capitals in town tonight, and the Flyers will open up a 8-game homestand. Franchise high. Was there a 7-gamer before?
There was a 7-gamer in the late 90s. Yes, that was the last time the Flyers had anything like this. This was supposed to be a 6-game homestand. That was the intent when the schedule was created, but it ended up getting kind of just messed around with a little bit. This game tonight, for instance, was supposed to be played in December. The game, the other night was supposed to be played in December as well. There's a Detroit game that was supposed to be played earlier this year. The Carolina game that comes up on Monday, that was supposed to be earlier this year. So when everything got rescheduled and shuffled about, Flyers ended up with this 8-game homestand, which they've never had it before in franchise history. But these are the days we are living in, where COVID is still forcing adjustments and things of the like. So that's why we've got this, and the Flyers are going to try to make the most of it.
Yeah, I feel like COVID's in 5 overtimes, like Flyers Pittsburgh back in the day.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Hopefully, Keith Primo's about to score then.
Because,
I guess I don't pay as much attention as I probably should. I hear numbers are going down. The vaccination requirement here at the Wells Fargo Center has been lifted by the city, so we don't have to worry about that. It's Flyers or Sixers games or concerts anymore. Mask mandate's still here for the time being, but I'm hopeful that we're getting back toward having a normal 22-23 season.
Yeah, seeing everybody's faces again. Yep. Flyers come into this game in the 7th spot in the Metropolitan Division. 48 games played, 15-24 and 939 points. They're actually tied in points with New Jersey, but they've played 2 less games than the Devils. And the opponent tonight is now in the 4th spot. They were leading the division at one point, really off to a great start. They've not been as good of late, the Washington Capitals. 51 games played, 27-15 and 963 points. They're holding down a wild card position. 5-5 in their last 10, did win their last 1. So you got a team that maybe isn't humming on all cylinders, but Peter Laviolette is going to have his team ready to play at this building tonight and start to, the message of his team is, let's go out and take care of a team that is banged up, not playing well, and we can equal from a talent standpoint on the ice tonight.
Yeah, we talked about this the other night, and I was kind of hoping that maybe the Flyers are catching the Capitals at a good time. They're kind of sputtering right now. They've been hot and cold, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. They won 2 in a row at one point, but they lost 2 in a row before that and right after that. So they've been kind of just not quite clicking like all cylinders, like you said. And so they just lost Justin Schultz. He's day-to-day now. I don't believe he's playing tonight. So this hopefully for the Flyers is a good time to catch them. They're in a bit of a road swing right now. This is the second game of it, actually. Two of them are here in Philadelphia, but they had to go out to Nashville the other night, and they were just out and back. So that's not the easiest trip to fly out there and back and keep playing. But the hope is that maybe that's going to knock them off their game a little bit. But like you said, Peter Laviolette knows how to motivate a group, and he knows at least some of these Flyers, how they click and what they need to do to shut them down, most notably number 28.
Yeah, and speaking of number 28, Claude Giroux, obviously there's a lot of, I don't know if this is the right word or not, noise around Giroux because of the trade deadline.
Yeah.
A lot of reporting is being done regarding will he or won't he waive his no-move clause? Who are the teams? Colorado and Minnesota and St. Louis. We've heard Florida and Carolina, who we'll see on Monday. And those kind of things, like that noise can sometimes be a distraction for a team. But I like the way that everybody's kind of handling it.
Yeah.
Chuck handled it in his press conference and said, it's going to be up to Claude. And, Danny's talked about it pre-air, and Claude spoke about it a couple of days ago that he hasn't had that conversation. He's still committed right here, right now, which is exactly what he's going to say until something happens.
Yeah, I mean, for all the stuff he's done in his career, this is one situation that he has never had to deal with personally. He's watched players around him do it. Danny being one of them, although that was a bit of a different situation. But there's I'm sure a lot going through his head, and it's not just him. He's got a newborn son. He's got a family here, of course, that he's got to think about. How does that affect things? So there is a lot to worry about right now. The only thing that makes it a little bit better, I think, is that the Flyers are not on the fence in terms of dealing, or they are out of it. They're not trying to decide whether to be buyers or sellers at the deadline. So that might make it a little bit easier. But it's got to be difficult to try to weigh your future here like this and figure out which direction you're going to go.
Well, he made his debut 14 years ago, coming this Saturday.
Wow,
I believe that February 19th. Way back when.
Up in Ottawa.
Yeah, longest tenured athlete. We're number 56 on that day.
Yep.
All right, stay tuned. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates, they are in the house, and they have got the countdown to face-off, and then all the first period action between the Flyers and the Caps here at Wells Fargo Center. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.